All right, everybody, welcome back. Episode number 187 of the Minding Your Business podcast. Entrepreneurship, real estate, trending news. There's no business like minding your own. Excited to be here with you, recording this on a Friday morning, Friday, August the 21st of 2020. We have crossed over month 5 of our social distancing and quarantine life. I hope this finds you all doing very well and as well as can be. I am beyond excited for today's guest. MYB, as you know, my background in banking and that sort of thing. And, this is someone that a lot of us in banking look up to. She may not know that, but we all know that. As those of us that are in banking, no matter how you look, but certainly those of us that are Black and in banking look to this bank as leaders and people that run this bank as leaders. And certainly my guest today is definitely one of those. I'm extremely excited to introduce Mrs. Teri Williams, who is the president and COO of OneUnited Bank there in Massachusetts. She's, more than qualified. Her list of accomplishments runs very long. She holds an M.B.A. with honors from Harvard University, a B.A. In economics from Brown University. She's currently the chair of the Black Economic Council of Massachusetts, which is tremendous. We'll talk about that. And she's an author. She's the author of I Got Bank, What My Granddad Taught Me About Money, which we'll ask her what her granddad taught her about money. And Teri is also married and has 2 beautiful children. So, Teri, thank you so much for joining here on the Minding Your Business podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's really good to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's jump right in, Teri. Tell us a little bit about yourself and, kind of your beginnings and how you got to where you are today.
So I am originally from a very small town called Indiantown, Florida.
Oh, wow.
I know. It is a town that had 7,000 people and had a railroad track. White people lived on one side, Black people lived on the other.
Naturally.
Yeah, yeah. And I actually owe a lot of who I am to my great grandmother.
Okay.
Yeah. We called her Ma Honey. Everybody else called her Miss Honey. But her real name was Annie Coachman. But she was a businesswoman really before the term was even coined.
Wow.
She owned a barbecue pit, a juke joint, some real estate, and a penny candy store. We used to sell penny candy and knee-high soda. And I used to follow her around as a kid. I really looked up to her. So that really is sort of the basis of who I am.
Sure.
I had the opportunity to go to Brown. And really, at the time, I didn't even know what Ivy League was. I just went to Brown because they gave me the most money
Yeah.
as a scholarship,
Yeah.
So that's where I went. I went on scholarship,
Yeah.
and then majored in economics and really I really love money and people. I love numbers
Okay.
and people,
There you go. Yeah.
so that's what sort of led me to economics and eventually to banking.
Yeah. Excellent. And I'm an economics major as well. Business economics here at the from the University of
Best major
Memphis.
ever.
Yes, absolutely. You
Yeah,
know what?
yeah.
Because I started, Terry, in information systems, and I
Ah,
took a class from a professor. His name's Goodside. I don't know if he's still there or not. I did
mm,
extreme. The information just came to me so easy, and I felt I really
yeah, yeah,
loved that
yeah.
study of how human beings manage resources, particularly when they're
Right,
scarce.
right. Yes,
And
yeah.
he said, maybe you should switch your major to economics. I said, yeah, brother, you're
Mm.
right. And that's what I did.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's tremendous to say the least. So
Mm,
what were kind of your early roles in banking? You finished school, Terry.
mm,
You
mm.
come from small town there in
Yeah,
Florida.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
what are some of your early beginnings in banking?
Mm. So, first of all, I never thought I would own a bank,
Yeah.
let alone the largest Black-owned bank in the country. Because in addition to being the president, I'm also the owner with my husband, who is also
Yes.
Black. So, I think
Yes.
we, or I, ever thought that I would own a bank. I didn't even really like banking. I thought it was boring. I really did. I thought it was like
Yeah.
boring and stuffy, and that there really wasn't any place for me.
Yeah.
But what I realized, I worked at American Express actually after business school,
Yeah.
and had the fortune of Ken Chenault, who later became the CEO, being my mentor. And he, I think, instilled in me the strategy of running towards problems,
Mm.
and it was sort of
Yes.
interesting as I was being guided by him through my career path. I ended up taking assignments where there were problems. And
Hmm.
what he said is that, everybody wants to go to something that's doing well. But if you
Right.
do that, and it continues to do well, people are not going to be able to determine how much is you versus how much is, baked in. Whereas if you go
Yes.
to an area where there's a challenge and there's a problem, um, and you turn it around, you can truly show both. You can learn and you can show, sort of your value.
Yes.
So, so that I think that is sort of was instilled in me.
Hmm.
And what I saw was that there was a problem with banking and our community, that there was a problem
Yes.
with, with Black folks in banking,
Hmm.
a systemic problem, a historical problem, and that until we fix that problem, we were not going to be able to succeed as a community. So
Yes.
I then ran towards that problem.
Mm, yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
And Terry, that's right up my alley too with some of my background because, early in my retail banking walk, I did the same thing. I learned early on that if I took on the tough branches, right, it's easy to take on the branch that's doing very well and making a lot of
Mhm.
incentive dollars and things like that. I know you can
Yeah.
appreciate that even from your time at
Yeah.
Bank of America.
Yeah.
So you have branches that do very well, and you hit the nail on the head, which was, how could anybody tell how much the needle moved or didn't move,
Yeah.
right? If it's already doing well, and I always felt like not that I wasn't confident in myself, Terry, but it could only go down, right? And what the
Yeah.
risk
Yeah.
was,
Yeah. Right.
if
Right.
it went
Right.
down on my watch, then that
Yeah.
would reflect poorly on me versus
Yeah.
if I take on, like you mentioned, a challenge, an opportunity,
Yes.
a branch
Yeah.
that maybe is in a declining assessment area, or
Yeah.
a branch that maybe has a challenge with its staffing, or whatever the challenge has
Mhm.
been to the bank. If I could
Yeah.
take on those projects, even a marginal increase would reflect
Yeah.
huge
Yes.
on
Yeah.
myself. And that
Yes.
helped me
Yeah.
through my career up to the C
Yes.
suite
Yeah.
level. And so
Yeah.
I'm glad you shared that because
Yeah.
a lot of us, particularly those that are black that are in banking, don't get to hear that story often enough, and
Yeah.
that kind of best practice.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So excellent. I'm glad you shared that. So as you progress through your banking career, Terry, obviously early on you mentioned not really liking it. I guess at some point, obviously you developed a liking towards it, and it kind of fed your love for people and numbers. What was kind of your progression? What kind of roles did you have within banks that progressed you to where you are?
Yeah. So as you mentioned, I started with Bank of America, and actually Bank of America in New York.
Okay.
So that was my introduction, and that was right out of college. Yeah,
Yeah.
right out of college. And I worked at Bank of America for 2 years in their commercial lending office, and then went to Harvard Business School from there. And um, what I felt, as I mentioned in banking, was that it was just too stuffy. I mean, Bank of America, commercial lending, it was just stuffy. And I
Right.
didn't really see a future for me in that kind of environment. But when I was at Harvard Business School, I was fortunate enough to go to a presentation. A guy by the name of Chris Rodriguez, who worked for American Express, and he
Hmm.
said, if you're interested in financial services, but you don't want to be stuffy, And then if you're interested in marketing and you don't want to market dog food,
Right,
then
right.
American Express is the best place
The
to
way to do it.
be, and, and I was
Right,
like, yes, that's me, like,
right,
so it was like Procter and Gamble and going down that marketing route. And I was like,
right,
I don't want to market dog food. And then
right.
there was banking and going down that
Correct.
market route, and investment banking and consulting. I was like, oh, that's not
Right.
me. And so that's where I decided that, American Express was, the best sort of sweet spot for me. So
Sure.
after Harvard, I went to American Express and worked there in their marketing area, but I was responsible for the gold card. So that introduced
Wow.
me to the credit area, the operations area, and how all of those areas actually intersect and align.
Mm-hmm.
So, one of the things that I learned is that there's an inverse relationship between credit and marketing,
Yeah.
meaning that if you have like really looser credit, you could sell more,
Mm-hmm.
but you end up having losses.
Right. Yeah.
Whereas
The
if you have
risk piece.
really tight credit, yeah, that it's harder to sell, but you end up having, sort of a better performance and sort of
Sure.
that balancing act, the same thing with operations. If you have very, very strict operations, very difficult to sell.
Mm-hmm.
If you loosen them, you can sell more, but you also have to be very careful about, customer service and fraud. So
Right.
I got to see that the need to balance all of those areas, and then, ultimately have used that expertise at OneUnited Bank.
Yeah. Absolutely. And so when you initially when you joined One United Bank,
Mhm.
what was your role initially with the bank?
Yeah.
Was it always president and COO, or did you join in another
No,
capacity?
well, it was always owner. So we actually, and it
Okay.
wasn't One United Bank. We actually bought a small bank in Boston called Boston Bank of Commerce
Okay.
that had been historically Black owned.
Yes.
And at the time, it was having some challenges. And so we bought the bank and turned it around, just like you
Yeah.
talk about those branches of turning it around.
Mm-hmm.
Then we bought another bank in Miami, which is People's National Bank of Commerce. I'm in Miami right now.
Yes.
We turned that around, and then we bought two more banks in LA,
Okay.
Founders and Family, and we combined all four of those banks into one bank and then
Sure.
changed our name to One United Bank. So
Gotcha.
we are actually four Black owned banks that have been combined. We
Mm.
then launched our online branch, as we call it, our online service in 2005, so 15 years ago.
Wow.
And so today we have both the local branches in Boston, Miami, and LA, and our online branch, as we call it, our online offering.
Mm-hmm.
And we are now the largest Black owned bank in the country.
Yep, absolutely. And
Mm.
I was able to join the bank very
Yeah,
easily
yeah,
online.
yeah, yeah,
But going back to what you said, I felt that I still had to go through, and as someone in banking, I can appreciate. I still had to go
mhm,
through the verification piece of it. It
yes,
wasn't just I just
yeah,
showed up. So
yeah,
I
yeah,
felt you had a nice balance of kind of friendly to me as an end user.
yeah,
I felt
yeah,
like I was able to go through the steps pretty easily, but
yeah,
then I still felt like I was being verified enough that I
mhm,
couldn't just Mickey Mouse and
yeah,
just come through and
yes,
just do whatever,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And I say that because my experience sometimes with banks has been it's an extreme, right, Terry?
yeah,
Like either
yeah,
it's so easy that
yeah,
I was like, well, how do they stop anybody from doing anything? And then
yeah,
or it's so tough that it's like, golly, I got to cut my right arm off to
yeah, yeah,
mail it to them to get in the account.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so, I really love that balance. And again, like I mentioned earlier, I've shared it, kind of throughout my network, as
mhm,
far as a bank for people to get involved with, definitely for
good,
sure. And so,
good, good.
let's get
Glad to
into
hear
some of,
that. So
oh
you're an
yeah.
advocate.
Yes,
Yeah,
I am. I am
good.
an advocate for sure. You can ask around. I'm here in Memphis.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
am definitely an
yeah,
advocate and a
yeah,
supporter for sure.
yeah, thanks.
So Terry, let's look at some of the things today. right? So
Hmm.
obviously, January 1st, if all of us were sitting around the table, me and you and your
I
husband
know.
and everybody,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't think any of us would have jumped up and said, you know what, Terry, I think there's going to be a worldwide pandemic this year and we need
Yeah.
to be concerned. Um,
Yeah.
so obviously the pandemic hits. What has been? I guess let's kind of two piece this. What if any impact has that had on One United?
Hmm.
Kind of how you were operating up through March and then into
Hmm.
now into the pandemic piece, and then the second part will be what has been the impact you've seen with customers.
Hmm.
Kind of
Hmm.
during this.
Yeah. Yeah. So, first of all, we had I don't know if you want to call it fortune, but to be in Boston, that got hit early.
Yeah.
There was a conference a Biogen conference actually, that resulted in the virus starting to spread early, and we got early warning signals of what was happening. That was helpful for us because we then put into place it's called, business continuity plans, where we, ordered all the um, sanitizer that we needed. We ordered masks. We ordered a lot of things before they became very difficult to find. We're an essential business, so we've been operating throughout the entire pandemic and operating in our offices. I'm actually in our office right now here in Miami. But we had to make sure that our employees were safe, that our customers were safe. And the result of all of this for us is that we've actually doubled our customer base during this pandemic. So for us,
Wow.
this has resulted in tremendous growth because a lot of people started to realize that they actually can bank from their home.
Yes.
And given that they can do that, and in fact, don't want to go into a branch, even though our branches are open, they don't want to come into a branch. They have moved their money to OneUnited Bank and started to bank black. So
Yep.
for us, this has been um, a growth period. We're still digesting all of the new customers we've received. I think we're 75% there in terms of getting our service up to where it was prior to the pandemic, just because we've grown so quickly, so fast.
Sure.
What we have seen in terms of our community and businesses in general, we did offer the PPP program, and we did that in the second round because we could see that a lot of Black businesses were not getting the funding they deserved in the first round. And what we have seen is that it really has been challenging for a lot of businesses, um, and at the same time been helpful for a lot of businesses. It really has been sort of so we've had a lot of businesses. In fact, they say 40% of Black businesses have
Yes.
closed since February. So, and a lot of those businesses were face-to-face businesses, whether they were restaurants or, retail shops or places that really relied on face-to-face contact. And
Right.
with the pandemic, they just haven't been able to continue to maintain their business. But we also have seen growth in a lot of businesses. And it's really businesses that either had an online presence to begin with, like us, or were able to pivot, really quickly and have found, sort of a new way of offering their services
Yes.
online. There also has been we powered this whole movement, the Blackout Day 2020, which had over 2 million followers and people that had decided on July 7th that they were going to not bank, they were going to do business only with Black-owned businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And that really has helped a lot of Black businesses, like tremendously. In fact,
Oh, absolutely.
you being in Memphis, we heard a lot about restaurants and stuff, Black restaurants that were just thrilled because people, rediscovered them. I mean, they were always there and they were always good, but people rediscovered them. And so, our view now is that anytime that there's change, there's opportunity. There's
Yes.
business opportunity. And right now, there are a lot of businesses that didn't present themselves as being Black owned. Like right now is a good time, if you are Black owned, to let people
Right.
know that you are Black owned, because whether it's the Black community or our allies are looking for Black owned businesses to support.
Yeah, definitely. And
Yeah.
we has a really nice comment as you were sharing that. Actually, one of your customers, who's a great friend of mine,
Ah,
Dr.
ah,
Eugenia Venturanza, shared a really good comment, and I want to read it to you, Terry, if I
mhm.
can.
Yeah.
One United has been great for me. They've helped me reestablish my credit, and the customer service is awesome. They've been great through COVID.
Oh, wow. Thank
And
you. Thank
so,
you, Eugenia. Yeah.
yeah, and also she mentioned we need to get her to Memphis, Ron.
Ah.
So
So
you're
I was
growing
telling
fans.
you, like my best friend. So I gotta do a shout out to Memphis. My best friend is from Memphis,
Yes.
and I don't know if this is like, it could be part of your podcast, but Judge
Yeah.
Carolyn Blackett is my
Yes.
best friend. Like we
Yes.
talk every week. So
Wow.
I know Memphis well,
Yes.
and have been there, a lot to visit her, and
Absolutely.
really appreciate your city. So thank you. Yeah,
Yeah. So, Dr. Eugenia, we definitely appreciate her comments and
yeah,
her
yes,
support
yeah,
of One United and support of the podcast as well.
yeah.
She's been tremendous, to say the
Good,
least.
good, good.
And so, Terry, as you're obviously none of us have a crystal ball going through this. We don't
Mhm.
know, what's going to be on the other side. What do you see as kind of, going forward for One United? Obviously, you've
Mhm.
grown your customer base tremendously.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so, like we talked about earlier, there's you talked about marketing and kind of that sort of thing. So now that you've grown these customers, obviously now I imagine it's, how do you maximize your offerings, to these customers and really get them fully embodied into the, One United family. Am I correct in
Mhm.
saying that that's kind of one of your initiatives would be to
Mhm.
fully onboard these customers, build relationships, and find out how you can offer the type of resources to help them, personally and professionally, through this pandemic and then even beyond.
Yeah, so our focus is, we call ourselves an activist bank,
Yeah.
so we believe that it's important to be part progress and part protest.
Yeah.
And so we supported, Black Lives Matter, since 2016. We supported the Take a Knee campaign and Colin
Mm-hmm.
Kaepernick.
Yes.
There's also, I don't know if you're familiar with the New York Times 1619
Mm-hmm.
Project,
Yes, I
Nicole
am.
Hannah Jones, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then, as I just mentioned, Blackout Day 2020. So we believe that as the largest Black-owned bank, that we need to get behind these movements because they really do have um, an economic consequence for our community. I mean, the
Yes.
reality is that the law precluded us from building wealth. It wasn't,
Mm-hmm.
because we weren't good with money, or, we weren't, we were spending our money on the wrong things. The law actually precluded us from building wealth, and that we need to ensure better laws and better policies in order to address systemic racism. So
Mm.
that's our overarching goal, is really to continue to support social justice movements. I
Yes.
think the second is really to focus on closing the wealth gap.
Mm.
And this is
Yes.
where it comes with our customers. So, as you know, the wealth gap is huge in some
Mm-hmm.
respects. The average net worth of a white person in America is about 170,000. A Black person, it's 17,000. That's a huge
Yes.
gap. But at the same time, it's really only one transaction,
Mm-hmm.
that any family can focus on that one transaction for themselves. And that one
Yes.
transaction could be starting a business, it could be buying a home, it could
Mm-hmm.
be having insurance, for your
Yes.
parents. But we really want to encourage our members, our family, our community to focus on that one transaction to address the wealth gap for your family.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean that there aren't also policy things that we need to do. And, we need to vote and we need to advocate for those policy things.
Sure.
But we also need to focus on the things that we can more directly control, which is
Mm-hmm.
that one transaction that we can engage in to eliminate that wealth gap for our family.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that part of your mission. And NYB, I want you to take notice of something that Teri didn't say, because what she didn't say was very powerful, along with the power of what she said. You notice she didn't say anything about maximizing shareholder wealth. She didn't say anything about maximizing the loan portfolio. She didn't say anything about reducing expenses. None of the corporate type things that you might normally get from leaders in banking. And again, I've been around banking a long time now.
Yeah, yeah.
So everything she talked about was mission based, and it was mission based, for our people, for Black people, and the enrichment of the Black family and the Black community. And that's something that's rare, Teri. And you know this. This is rare. There are not a lot of banks with that type of mission, right? Even Black banks.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, for that to come down from the top, what that tells me is that cascades through your culture. And I imagine if I talk to anybody on your team, they're going to echo that same sentiment,
Yeah,
because that's
yeah,
something that's driven in your culture there at One United.
yeah. No, it is, and I can't imagine it any other way. And then again, it goes back to my upbringing with my great grandmother. I mean, she owned those businesses, but she was really all about the community. So,
Yeah.
I think that, it is important, again, to focus on ensuring that we are profitable and can stay in business.
Hmm.
And not just, for our lifetime, but for generations to come. But I do think that, if our customers succeed, we will succeed. If our
Yes.
community succeeds, we will succeed. And so that really is, it really is a matter of us lifting each other up. And yes, that is a part of our culture.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that's come up in banking, Teri, and I wanted to get your opinion on it because I think it'd be intriguing for us, is obviously with everything going on, it's become a little more comfortable for non-Black people, for white people, and everybody else to speak more about diversity and inclusion and things like that, whether
Yeah,
it's personally or as blanket statements corporately.
yeah, yeah.
I've received calls because of obviously myself being Black and being in
Yeah,
banking,
yeah,
to be a part of different groups, to
yeah,
help them understand and get, and some of it's genuine. Some of
yeah.
it I've been very vocal about saying, that I don't want to be part of a pandering campaign.
Mhm,
I want to be part of
mhm.
something that's really going to challenge the critical thinking and be a part of real, advocating and implementing real change.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so, I say that to say that, diversity and inclusion in banking, because, there are
Mhm.
not a lot of Black banks currently. And
Mhm.
when I say
Yeah.
Black owned and Black controlled,
Yes. Yeah.
there's Black owned, but not
Right.
always
Right.
Black controlled,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
there's Black managed,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But not Black owned.
Yeah.
And I've always
Yeah.
made that distinction.
Yeah.
And so, for obviously for One United, you are Black owned, Black
Right.
managed, and Black
Yeah.
controlled.
Yes.
And all
Yes.
those things
Yes.
have
Yes.
to line up. And I'm making that
Yes.
distinction
Yes.
for a reason.
Yes. Yeah.
How do we encourage more Black banks? And then,
Mhm.
Teri, how do we encourage more Black bankers? So people to get
Mm.
into banking, because
Yeah. Yeah.
you talked about your view early on. I had my view. I come out of a
Yes.
neighborhood
Yeah.
where I wasn't around any bankers. I went on a field
Yeah.
trip to a bank and I saw Black
Ah.
bankers. That encouraged me to get
Yeah.
into it, right?
Yes. Good. Yeah. Yeah.
So how do we again grow more Black banks, and how do we
Hmm.
get more Black bankers?
Yeah, yeah. So, no, thank you for that question. And this is important. There are 4,500 banks in the country, and only 19 of them are Black banks.
Wow. Say that again.
So,
Can you say that again, Terry?
yeah, there's 4,500 banks in this country. And let me just be clear, most of them are owned
Yes.
by individuals. So there's definitely some large banks that are publicly traded, but a lot of the 4,500 banks are actually owned by individuals. And there are only 19 Black banks in the country, 19 out of
Wow.
4,500. So, so yes, we are a small group. And then we also, there are Hispanic American owned banks, there are Asian American owned banks, as well as, Black owned banks.
Yes.
And they are much larger. Asian and Hispanic are much larger than Black owned banks. So, we have a long way to go. Again, but a lot of it is due to systemic racism.
Sure.
But the way that we could move Black banks forward and move ourselves forward is to, first of all, to trust each other. Trust is the biggest um, issue that we have. And
Yes.
part of it is that we have been taught to not trust each other.
Yes.
We have been taught that their ice is colder. I use that expression. My kids look at me like, what is she talking about? But when we were growing up, that's what we were taught, is that if you had an option of going to a Black restaurant and a white restaurant, you go to the white restaurant, or a Black doctor and a white doctor, you go to the white doctor because they were better. And that's just not true. It's absolutely not true. I
Yeah.
put our services up against a Bank of America, Wells Fargo, any community
Absolutely.
bank
Without
in the
question.
country. Yes. And so I think that part of it is that we have to trust each other and um, and support each other. Because it's also not just about banking. Like we have vendors that do all kinds of things for us. We do construction projects for the bank. We have security and all kinds of other services that we pay for, and we look for Black-owned businesses to provide those services.
Yes.
Um, so it is really using our dollars more purposefully, and recognizing that if we spend in our community, we can create jobs in our community.
Yes.
There's this great book by Maggie Anderson called Our Black Year, Our O-U-R, Black Year. And she and her family decided for 1 year that they were just going to buy from Black-owned businesses.
Yeah.
And it was hard. It was hard to find Black-owned businesses, and but she was able to do it, and she learned why it was hard. And what she learned is that when things started to open up in the '60s, that we basically fled to white businesses, and we also taught those businesses how to market to us,
Yes.
so that they basically took customers away from Black-owned businesses. We're now coming full circle and going back to our Black-owned businesses, both starting them and also buying and using their services,
Yes.
and that's going to help us grow as a community.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And the thoughts on more bankers. What are your
Yes.
thoughts on more
Yeah.
Black bankers
Right.
to kind
Yeah.
of parallel with that great
Yeah.
effort that you described,
Yeah.
Terry? What are your
Yeah.
thoughts there? How do we get more of
Yeah.
us coming out of school,
Yeah.
going into banking, and doing what you and
Yeah.
I have done?
Yes. So banking today is a great opportunity, partially because a lot of people are steering away from banks these days. They're going to, technology, or they're going to healthcare and not going into banking. So there is banks are having a difficult time recruiting people. So if you are looking for a job, and banks are an essential business.
Yes.
So, we're hiring as an example, and a lot of banks are hiring.
Mm-hmm.
So, part of it is just not believing, like I did, that banks have to be stuffy. There are
Right,
a lot of
right.
areas within banks that are not stuffy. There's no question there's a stuffy section of the banks,
Of course.
but there are also a lot of banks, areas of the bank that are not stuffy, and there are huge career opportunities right now. So that's one, to just look at banks as an opportunity area, and an essential business that's hiring. And then I
Yes.
think the second part is, to also be very, um, explicit about your interests when you're in banking.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is, banks are looking, they know that they have to become more diverse. They may not know
Yes.
how, but they know they need to.
Yes.
And yes, and so basically speaking, your truth and how you feel when you walk in the door. Like if you are, made to feel like you don't belong, make that point, to your manager or to your manager's manager, that
Mm-hmm.
this place is not welcoming to Black folks. And if you want to expand your business,
Right.
with the Black community, that needs to be addressed.
Yes.
So basically, hold banks accountable for serving our community, because they know they need to do it. They just don't know how.
Yeah, and what you spoke to earlier, I think, is true. To go along with that point, is that a lot of these, especially the community-based banks, are individual and family-owned,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
some of them are in. I work a lot in the Midwest, and so
hmm,
Terry, a lot of those banks are in communities where there's not a lot of diversity, other than
yeah,
gender,
yeah,
really.
yeah, yeah,
And so the accountability, like you said, I think it's incumbent on all of us, whether we're bank customers or we work in banks, to be
yeah,
vocal about
yeah,
what's going on and truthful about it,
yeah,
and not have
yeah,
this, this undenying fear of
yeah,
being ostracized, or I may get
yeah.
fired, or I may get
Right,
treated some certain way.
right,
Because I think that's a
right.
part of this long-standing legacy that we've had that's
Yeah,
impeded change, is that there's
yeah,
not enough of us speaking up because we're
yeah,
fearful of
yeah,
things, one, that haven't even happened, but
yeah.
we're fearful that, well, if I speak up, they'll think I'm this, or they'll think I'm that, or
Yes, yeah, yeah,
I'm the angry Black woman, or I'm the angry
yeah,
Black man, or something like that.
yeah,
So enough of us have to speak out, and
yeah.
then that holding accountable of that as a customer and then as a
Hmm,
banker, just
yeah,
becomes so critical to where we're looking to go, and being able
yeah,
to speak up and then offer solutions as we speak up. So
yeah,
it's not
yeah,
just pointing out the problem and walking away. It's,
yeah.
pointing out the problem, and then, to your
Yes,
point, as far as an opportunity in banking where it's not so starchy, right?
yeah,
You're not the
yeah,
starchy,
yes, yes,
red
yes,
tie, white shirt
yes,
banker.
yes, yes, yes,
You can offer up solutions that I think a
yeah,
lot of banks are going to be open to,
yeah,
that you can actually create opportunity for yourself now in
yeah,
banking that you maybe couldn't do in the past.
yeah. I agree, and and I think, getting back to that fear factor, because it's not
Hmm.
just in banking; it's in,
It's in everything. Yeah.
wherever we work, it's everywhere. And I think getting over that and bringing our authentic selves to our companies is something that we owe to ourselves. To be honest
Hmm.
with you, if you come to your job and you fear, first of all,
Hmm.
period. But also you feel like you can't be yourself. That's a tremendous burden. That's a hard thing to do every day. And
It is.
so you either need to let go of that feeling and get over that fear in your current company, or start to look for a new place to work or a new career, because it is one of the things that sort of eats at us over time, and
Hmm.
it's not healthy. Now I know, like especially today when jobs are scarce and people are like, "Look, I need to keep my job. I don't
Right.
want to do
Right. Right.
anything to put my job at risk," and I definitely understand that. But I also think it's something to work towards, even if you can't do it fully today.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something to always work towards, and
Mhm.
there's always a way to
Yes,
be able to present things, obviously, with
yes,
the proper tact and
Yes.
within the
Yep.
proper emotional and relational intelligence that it
Yep.
takes and is incumbent upon a professional. But also, you can communicate that with the intensity that it needs to help drive change. And I think if
Yep.
you stick to sharing it with and being willing to offer up solution or be part of the solution, I think goes
Yep.
a long way.
Yep.
So I think that's a tremendous dialogue that we're having. And NYB, I hope
Yep.
that you're really taking note of this, because whether in banking or not, we do need to be more vocal. And not, and then, again, most of us work in right to work states, and I know that we're concerned about, particularly in the job market that's been impacted, as Terry said, that
Yep.
you don't want to be ostracized or
Yep.
put in a precarious position when you're trying to feed your family and that sort of
Yep.
thing, and go forward. However,
Yep.
being enslaved to that fear will not allow us to grow as a community,
Right.
and then all of us as individuals and with our individual families. And so it
Yep.
makes it very tough. But I think,
Yep.
we will get there, obviously, with
Yes.
the help of
Yes.
OneUnited, being
Yes. Yes.
leaders
Yes.
in
Yeah.
this space.
Yeah.
Terry, actually, Dr. Eugenia had a question for you.
Okay. Yeah.
She wanted to know if you or if OneUnited was part of the Hope Project, or kind of partnered with the Hope Project. I think that's
Hmm.
the John Hope Bryant
Oh, yes. 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 Yes.
project.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Yep. Yep. So we haven't, we use their curriculum. We've used their curriculum, but we're not part of the actual project that puts sort of these centers within our branches. Um, I don't even know if that's going on today, actually. I know that's
yeah,
what they were doing it. So just for your listeners that don't know, um, the John Hope Bryant created this financial literacy curriculum for us, for our community, and it really doesn't just teach, sort of the basics of money management. It really goes to sort of the core foundational issues of, the need for self-empowerment, the need for um, self-respect, the need to be respected. It really
yes,
starts there and provides that foundation, and how that can lead to better decisions, and then focusing on financial decisions. So it's a really great curriculum, and we have used it, even though we haven't had their actual centers in our branches.
yeah. Absolutely, and thank you for sharing that. And Eugenia, I
Yeah,
think that hopefully that answers your question. We appreciate
yeah,
that. It's a
yeah,
great and tremendous question to
yeah.
share. Um, you know, yeah, Terry, for you, what's the importance of family? Obviously, you and your husband own the
Mhm,
bank. You have two wonderful
mhm,
children. How
mhm,
supportive and what's what role does family play for you
mhm, mhm,
as you
mhm,
operate, and you have the great joys, but you also have the obstacles and the problems that you have to solve on a daily basis as being one of
mhm.
19
Yeah,
black-owned banks.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
talk about that importance with family.
yeah. And just because I just want to pause 1 second to go back to Eugenia's
Yo, please.
question, we also
Yeah.
have a financial literacy curriculum on our website. If you go to oneunited.com/learn, we have an online financial education center where you can take classes for free. I also wrote a children's book called I Got Bank.
Yes.
And if you go to oneunited.com/book, you could actually download the book free. And it's a children's book focused on financial literacy. So I just wanted to say that because, since we were talking
Yeah.
about financial literacy.
Yeah.
But in
Absolutely.
terms of family, yes, family is, I would say, critical. And not just, I look at my family, but I just think, the Black family in general, that none of us would be where we are today if it weren't for the support of our family.
Yes.
And I think sometimes we forget that.
Yes, we do.
Sometimes we could believe that we're here because of what we've done, and not recognize that, whether it's our parents or our grandparents, or the story I talk about is my great grandmother, really
Hmm.
provided the foundation for me to be here today. So I do think that there are tremendous lessons that we get from our family that we take with us for a lifetime.
Yeah.
Um, but that being said, there are also challenges that we have in our family. In the book that I wrote, it's about a young black boy named Jazz Ellington. He's 10 years old and he saved $2,000.
Okay.
But his mom, his brother, and his sister are trying to spend his money.
Oh my
you
gosh.
know so
Yeah.
and that's one of the things that we also experience in our family is that
Right.
there, if we're lucky, one of us or a couple of us have quote made it, or
Hmm.
have done well, but we have a whole lot of people that we're nurturing and we're supporting,
Hmm.
and we have to figure out how to do that while at the same time moving forward ourselves.
Yes.
And Jazz figures it out. He figures out how to help his family. He doesn't turn his back, but he also doesn't let them spend his money.
Right. Right.
And
The
so
balance.
and so so I think it's really all of that. And that was part of the reason that I wrote the book, is that I could see. You look at white families and everybody's got college degrees, or everybody's got a good job and owns a home, and they're all just marching forward. Then you look at our families, and again, you might have one or two that have good jobs. You might
Hmm.
have one family home and everybody else is renting, or and just trying to get us to pool our resources together and support each other and recognize that one family member that you think is all that and is doing well is probably also just sort of just getting by. And so we really do need to figure out ways to support our family while at the same time moving forward.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Duly noted point,
Yeah.
indeed, there, Terry.
Okay.
Dr. Eugenia had another statement of support.
Ah,
She says that the Memphis Urban League has a financial literacy and home buying platform. I will be
ah,
recommending the One United curriculum when
yeah.
we restart those classes. And
Oh,
so
great.
that's
Yes.
great support for Dr. Eugenia.
Yes. Thank you.
I'm actually a past board member of the Memphis
Oh,
Urban League
okay.
here,
Good.
and so
Oh, good.
um,
Good.
doing great work, and Dr.
Yeah.
Eugenia and her team are, and I'm glad to hear, Dr. Eugenia, that you'll be including One
Yeah.
United's curriculum, and kind of, I think that's a great way to, kind of parallel a relationship with
Yes.
resources
Yes.
and
Yeah.
working together, which has been what Terry and I have been talking about
Yeah.
today, is that support and that trust
Yeah.
that Terry spoke about earlier.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Eugenia,
Fabulous.
thank you so much
Thank you. Yeah.
for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Terry, as we wrap up, because
Mhm.
again, this has been a tremendous dialogue. I have really
Mhm.
enjoyed this.
Mhm.
I really appreciate what you're leading there and driving the culture there with
Mhm.
not just One United Bank, but across the industry.
Mhm.
It's very much needed, and I really appreciate what you and your husband and your entire team are doing.
Mhm.
I'm sure you've got some unsung heroes there at One United
Yes,
who
yes,
may
yes,
not
yes.
get on
It is a
podcasts like
team.
this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's a team. No question. No
Yeah.
question.
Well, I always like to say that because I like to recognize, because there's people that
Yeah.
may not get, podcast
Yeah.
invites and interview
Yeah.
invites that work on
Yeah.
our team, but who
Yeah.
really make things happen on a daily
Yes.
basis. And so those
Absolutely.
folks are always, to be recognized. And I know that
Yeah.
you support those people. Um,
Yeah.
uh, we talked earlier about kind of people struggling and building up families and that sort of
Mhm.
thing, Terry. What
Mhm.
are just one or two best practices that you like to share here with this
Mhm.
audience, that
Mhm.
when people get
Mhm.
done listening to this podcast, right, and they go
Yes.
back into their world,
Mhm.
what's some things that they can maybe incorporate into
Yeah.
their life that have really
Yeah.
benefited you?
Yeah. No, thank you for that question. So the first thing they can do, and I recommend this to everyone, is to start some sort of automatic savings plan.
Mm-hmm.
The idea that, and let me tell you what I mean by that, which is that you set up a way so that I don't care if it's $1 I don't care if it's $5, $50, whatever it is, that money is taken out of your account automatically and moved to a savings account.
Yes.
I can tell you that you'd be amazed at how quickly that money will grow and how much you will not miss it. And that anyone that has any wealth will tell you that that is the only way to build
Mm-hmm.
wealth. That is the
Right.
only way. And I remember when I got out of college and I worked and, I get a paycheck and I cash the paycheck. And, by the end of the pay period, I would be out of money. And I'll be like, I got to do a better job of saving money. And this would happen week after week after week. And then, finally, I realized that if it went in my pocket, it was going to get spent. Just plain and simple.
Right.
Plain and
Yeah,
simple. It's
exactly.
like, right. So you have to take it, you have to get it out of your hands basically by putting it automatically in a savings account. And again,
Right.
whether that's with OneUnited or anyone else, but just set up an automatic savings plan. The other thing that I would do is to focus on the one transaction that's going to close the wealth gap for your family. That one transaction. And
Sure.
you need to look around and say, okay, what is it going to be? Bring your family together and say, okay, what is it going to be? It could be taking out an insurance policy, on your parents. I know
Mm-hmm.
most of us, our parents die and they leave us nothing. And I don't mean the
Yes.
kind of
Very
insurance
true.
policy that pays for their funeral. I'm talking about, insurance policy that's going to pay a couple $100,000 if they pass
Right.
away. So that's an
Mm-hmm.
example of a wealth building strategy. It could be buying a
Yes.
home. If you're renting, pooling your resources together. Interest rates are 2.5% today, and
Yes.
gentrification has been paused. They were running into our community, now they're fleeing our community. So I mean,
Mm-hmm.
this is a good opportunity to buy. So it could be,
Yes.
buying a home. If you're a business, it could be buying the place of your business.
Mm-hmm.
It could be starting a business. With change, there's always business opportunities. So really focusing on that one transaction that's going to build wealth. And I guess this is the third.
Yeah.
And actually, this podcast is a good example. It's having, what I call a kitchen cabinet. Having people that you could sit around the kitchen table with, or a Zoom call with, and
Okay.
say, this is what I'm thinking about. This is what I'm thinking about doing. And does it make sense? Too
Yeah.
often we go off into our own little world and try to do this kind of stuff on our own. It's like it's almost impossible to do completely on our own.
Yes.
And there are a whole lot of resources in our community, whether it's the Urban League, whether it's the Black Chambers. There's all kinds of resources in our community to help us. And so you need to create that kitchen cabinet, that group of people that you trust, that you could bounce ideas off of. I'm thinking about this, and just get their honest opinion back.
Yep, absolutely. And so to summarize that MYB, because that's some tremendous
Yeah.
best practices for all of us. One,
Mm-hmm.
Terry mentioned about starting our own automated savings account with your savings
Mm-hmm.
plan. And of course, you can
Yeah.
definitely do that with One United Bank at oneunited.com.
Mm-hmm.
But that is tremendous. I mean, that changed the game for me and
Mm-hmm.
my family.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
for many families, that's a place to begin. So before you even
Yeah.
get into anything grandiose or
All
feeling you
right.
got to run, jump out there, just take a few
Right.
dollars a pay period and start putting that
Yeah.
aside, and you'll be
Yeah.
amazed at how that builds up. The same way you'll be amazed
Yeah.
if you don't track it and it's gone, like Terry and I said.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
yeah, $20 can get spent very quickly, and so
Yeah.
that's one. Two, kind of focusing on that transaction that Terry's
Yeah.
mentioned for
Yeah.
closing the wealth gap for you.
Yeah.
Buying real estate,
Yeah.
insurance. Terry
Yeah.
mentions,
Yeah.
even buying or starting a business,
Yeah.
getting into something that's going to be a game changer for you, and doing that in real life, not just posting it on social media, but doing that in real
Yeah.
life.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Exactly.
And then third, Terry referred to it as a kitchen cabinet.
Yeah.
And you've seen that kind of in politics of the
Yeah.
president's
Yeah.
cabinet, right?
Yes. Yeah.
We
Yeah.
should all kind of have that. Who are
Yeah.
those folks in your family, or maybe even outside, that you trust,
Yeah.
the resources. Dr. Eugenia talked about the Urban League, and
Yeah.
Terry talked about different community resources. There's a ton of them out there, but you have to go find them. They're not going to come to your house and just hop in your lap.
No,
You're going to
no.
have to take the effort to go find them and look them
Yeah.
up. So the same effort it takes to post on social media all day, the same effort
Yes.
it takes to get upset every time the president tweets
Yeah.
and comment all day on his stuff. It's the
Yeah.
same effort NYB of going and
Yeah.
getting the resources. And
Yeah.
you'll be surprised. I found in my walk and journey that sometimes it's been good just to be present.
Yeah.
I've had
Yeah.
great things happen just by being present sometimes when others aren't.
Yes. Yeah.
And so
Yes. Yeah.
those are tremendous best practices from Teri Williams, who is president and COO and owner of OneUnited Bank there in Boston, Massachusetts. Her and her husband, and tremendous board of directors, tremendous team there
Yeah.
that are
Thank you.
advocating for our community every day. And so research support them. And I'm encouraging you all to go to OneUnited.com. There's the book that Terry mentioned. There's financial literacy resources. They're doing the right things. And y'all know, I don't just blow smoke. I've been at a lot of banks. I've been in the industry. I was 17 years in it myself. I'm 19 years altogether. So I don't say that just loosely. But this is a bank that I do business with. That there are people that I trust and have confidence in. And Terry, this has been
Thank you,
tremendous to
Ron.
have.
Oh,
You're very
thank you.
welcome.
Thank you for having me. Yeah. Thank you for having me. It's been fabulous.
Yeah, excellent. And so, Terry, best wishes personally, professionally,
Yes. Yeah.
for
Thank you.
you. I'd love to
Yeah.
remain connected, of course.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And
And I got to, next time I'm in Memphis, I'll definitely look you up.
Yeah, please do. My wife and I,
Yes. Yes.
we'd all love to meet you guys, and
Yes. Yeah.
maybe we
Yeah.
grab dinner or lunch or something like that,
Yes.
whatever
Yes.
time
Yes.
kind of
Absolutely.
permits.
Yes. Great.
All
Right.
right. Well,
All
Terry,
right.
thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Be
Thank
safe, be
you.
great, and
Yeah.
thank you for
Thanks.
what you
Thanks.
do.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
See you. Take care.
Bye.
All right, that was Teri Williams, president, COO, and owner of OneUnited Bank there in Boston, Massachusetts. Tremendous conversation, right? I hope you all agree. Lawrence Thompson, what's going on, brother? Yep, definitely. Yeah, definitely. We can connect, man. Come on now. Stop playing. Lawrence, that's the law right there. Dr. Eugenia Venturanza, tremendous participation. I really appreciate your support, your positivity, and your questions. Those are great questions that you asked throughout this dialogue that I had with Terry. And so I'll remain connected with Terry. I'd like for you all to connect with Terry. Reach out to her, go to oneunited.com, connect with her, and let her know that you heard her right here on the Minding Your Business podcast, episode number 187. And do business with the bank. Do business with black banks. It doesn't make any sense to buy everything black and then put it in other folks' bank. It just doesn't make sense, right? You got to put it in your own bank. That's where the wealth gap gets shrunk, because when you put it in your own bank, you're able to raise your own capital. You're able to give your own loans. You're able to give your own deposit accounts, your own savings rate, all those type of things. And so it is tremendous, to say the least, to be able to do that. And I encourage all of us to do that. So thank you again to Teri Williams, who's my guest today, again, of oneunited.com. Real quick, before I get out of here, brandyourpod.com is where you should go. I want to be your podcast partner. I can help you from idea generation all the way to launch and monetization of your own podcast platform. You can have great guests. If you want to do an interview podcast, I can connect you with all the various resources to help you get great interview guests or whatever style of podcast that you'd like to start. Go to brandyourpod.com. Also, have the financial software for real estate professionals, investors, and business owners. Leverage, equity partner with Leverage. That's leveragecalc.com. I'm going to be hosting a free demo of the software. You can see exactly how the software looks from my partners there at Leverage. John Matheson, who was on episode 146, he's the CEO of Leverage, as well as Stormy, who is the great business development contact there. They're going to lead, I'm going to host, but they're going to lead the presentation of the demo on Wednesday, August the 26th at noon Central Time. August 26th, noon Central Time, you'll be able to join the live demo. If you're unable to join live, that's fine. Still register. Where can you register? brooksbrothersconsulting.com/leverage. That's brooksbrothersconsulting.com/leverage. That's where you can go. You can register. You can see a little short video about the software. But we were talking with Teri earlier. Wouldn't it be great if you knew you were already pre-approved before you even talked to a lender or a bank? If you're buying real estate, or if you need capital for your business, a line of credit, term loan, one, to know if it's a financeable deal, but to know based on the underwriting criteria of that lender or that bank, whether you're approved before you even talk with them. So that's a whole lot better than having the bank ask you for your documents over and over again, and just to find out that you're not approved. It's a huge waste of time. It's frustrating. It's embarrassing. Save all of that and learn about this cloud-based software that helps business owners and, again, real estate professionals leverage that dialogue a little bit better and have a little bit more power in that conversation with your banker or your lender. Okay. brooksbrothersconsulting.com/leverage. Shout out to all of you on YouTube, all of you on Spotify, all of you on Deezer, all of you on Google, Apple, SoundCloud, wherever you are. And those that visit themybpodcast.com. That's the home of the Minding Your Business community, where you can get more exclusive content. You can listen to any of the episodes there and learn a little bit more about me and this podcast. I appreciate your support. Go be great for yourself, be great for your family, and be great for your community. I am Champ Ron. This is the Minding Your Business podcast.